He squares. He tried to bunt.
That was the exact moment David Fry's face was fractured. But here's the scary part. The latest updates from the doctors suggest his condition could actually get worse from here. In this video, I'm going to break down everything you need to know. The moment that changed everything. In the annals of baseball history, certain moments transcend the sport itself, becoming seared into the collective memory of fans, players, and anyone who witnesses them unfold in real time. September 23, 2025, at Progressive Field in Cleveland, Ohio, became one of those defining moments when a routine baseball play transformed into a nightmare that would leave an entire stadium in stunned silence and send shockwaves throughout the baseball world. David Fry, the 29-year-old designated hitter and catcher for the Cleveland Guardians, had already established himself as one of baseball's most compelling underdog stories. Originally drafted in the 22nd round by the Milwaukee Brewers in 2017, Fry's journey to Major League stardom was anything but conventional. After transitioning to the Guardians organization in 2022 and making his MLB debut in 2023, he had captured the hearts of Cleveland fans with his versatility, clutch hitting, and infectious enthusiasm for the game. The 2024 season had been nothing short of magical for Fry. He had posted a breakout performance with a .283 batting average, 14 home runs, and 60 RBIs, earning his first All-Star selection, an achievement that seemed impossible just a few years earlier when he was languishing in the minor leagues. His postseason heroics, including crucial home runs that helped propel the Guardians deep into the playoffs, had cemented his status as a fan favorite and a player who thrived in the biggest moments. But the 2025 season had been a tale of adversity and resilience for the utility player. After undergoing elbow surgery in November 2024 to address a flexor strain and chronically insufficient ulnar collateral ligament, Fry had missed the start of the season, not returning until late May. When he did come back, the numbers told a story of struggle, a .171 batting average through 66 games, though he still managed to connect for 8 home runs, showing flashes of the power that had made him so dangerous the previous year. The stakes couldn't have been higher on that fateful September evening. The Guardians and Detroit Tigers were locked in a fierce battle atop the American League Central Division, with playoff implications hanging in the balance of every pitch, every swing, every strategic decision. The game represented more than just another regular season contest. It was a pivotal moment in Cleveland's pursuit of October baseball, with both teams understanding that every win down the stretch could mean the difference between a division title and watching the playoffs from home. As the bottom of the 6th inning began, the Tigers held a precarious 2-1 lead over the home team. The Progressive Field crowd of over 28,000 fans sensed the urgency, their voices rising with each pitch as they willed their beloved Guardians to mount a comeback. The inning started promisingly for Cleveland, with runners on first and second base, Jose Ramirez on first and Stephen Kwan on second after a leadoff walk and a hit by pitch, creating the exact scenario that teams dream of in close, late-game situations. Standing on the mound for Detroit was Tarik Skubal, the left-handed ace who had established himself as one of the premier pitchers in Major League Baseball. With a devastating arsenal and a 2.39 ERA that had him firmly in Cy Young Award consideration, Skubal represented the kind of elite pitching that could shut down even the most dangerous offensive rallies. His fastball regularly touched the upper 90s, and his command and composure in high-pressure situations had made him one of the most feared pitchers in the American League. Cleveland manager Stephen Vogt, a former catcher who understood the nuances of game situations better than most, made a decision that would prove to have devastating consequences. With no outs and runners in scoring position, Vogt called for a sacrifice bunt, a fundamental small ball strategy designed to advance the runners and potentially tie the game. It was the kind of tactical move that managers make hundreds of times throughout a season, a routine play that should have been executed without incident. David Fry stepped into the batter's box, his mind focused on the task at hand. Bunting against a pitcher of Skubal's caliber required precision, timing, and no small amount of courage. The at-bat progressed to a 2-2 count, with both pitcher and hitter locked in a battle of wills and skill. Fry squared around to bunt, his body language and positioning indicating his intention to sacrifice his own offensive opportunity for the good of the team. The kind of selfless play that had endeared him to teammates and fans alike throughout his career. What happened next unfolded in a matter of milliseconds, but the impact would reverberate for weeks, months, and potentially years to come. Skubal delivered a high-velocity fastball clocked at 99.1 mph. Some reports cite 99.6 mph, elevated and slightly inside, a pitch designed to jam the bunter but carrying extra danger due to its speed and location. As Fry leaned in to make contact with the ball, attempting to deaden it and guide it toward the infield, the baseball made contact with the end of his bat in what appeared to be a routine foul bunt attempt, but physics and trajectory conspired to create a nightmare scenario. The ball deflected upward off the bat and struck Fry directly in the face, specifically targeting the nose and mouth area, with the full force of a major league fastball traveling at nearly 100 miles per hour. The impact was immediate, brutal, and utterly devastating to witness. Fry collapsed to the dirt in the batter's box, clutching his bloodied face as blood poured from his nose. The sound of the impact, described by those close enough to hear it as a sickening thud, seemed to echo throughout the suddenly silent stadium. For a moment that felt like an eternity, time stood still as the full magnitude of what had just occurred began to register with players, coaches, and fans alike. The silence that followed was perhaps the most telling aspect of the entire incident. Progressive Field, which just moments before had been alive with the sounds of 28,000 passionate fans cheering for their team, fell into a hush so profound that it seemed to vacuum all energy from the building. It was the kind of silence that speaks volumes about the severity of a situation, the collective intake of breath from an entire crowd that had just witnessed something far more serious than a typical baseball injury. Video footage of the moment, which would later be viewed millions of times across social media platforms and broadcast replays, captured every devastating detail: the pitch tailing toward Fry's head after minimal bat contact, the sickening impact, and Fry crumpling to the ground without any protective gear covering his face fully. Standard batting helmets, while effective at protecting the top and sides of a hitter's head, offer no protection for the facial area, leaving players vulnerable to exactly the type of injury that had just occurred. Skubal's reaction was immediate and visceral. The left-handed pitcher, visibly distraught, immediately removed his glove and cap, turning away in horror as the gravity of the situation became clear. His body language spoke to every pitcher's worst nightmare: the accidental injury of an opposing player, especially one resulting from a play as routine as an attempted sacrifice bunt. The emotional toll on Skubal was evident to everyone in the stadium and watching on television as he struggled to process what had just happened. Jose Ramirez, stationed at first base and one of Fry's closest teammates, put his hands on his head in shock, his reaction mirroring that of players from both teams who understood the severity of what they had just witnessed. The Tigers' dugout, which had been focused on maintaining their lead and closing out the inning, fell silent as the reality of the situation overshadowed any competitive concerns. Cleveland's athletic trainers and medical staff rushed onto the field with an urgency that communicated the seriousness of Fry's condition. Manager Stephen Vogt sprinted from the dugout, his face etched with concern as he knelt beside his fallen player. The medical team immediately began applying pressure to stem the bleeding while assessing the extent of Fry's injuries, their calm professionalism providing a stark contrast to the chaos and emotion surrounding them. For several agonizing minutes, Fry remained on the ground, attended by the medical staff, while the entire baseball world held its collective breath. The sight of a professional athlete lying motionless after such a violent collision served as a sobering reminder of the inherent dangers present in America's pastime, even during plays that are executed hundreds of times throughout a season without incident. But then, in a moment that provided the first glimmer of hope in an otherwise terrifying situation, Fry sat up under his own power and, remarkably, gave a thumbs up to the concerned crowd. The gesture, simple yet profound, drew emotional applause from the 28,000 fans who had been fearing the worst. It was a sign that while Fry was seriously injured, he remained conscious and aware of his surroundings, crucial indicators that potentially catastrophic brain trauma had been avoided. The thumbs-up gesture spoke to everything that had made David Fry such a beloved figure in Cleveland and throughout baseball. Even in his moment of greatest physical distress, with blood streaming down his face and his season likely over, he thought first of reassuring the fans and his teammates who were watching in horror. It was the kind of selfless act that perfectly encapsulated the character and toughness that had carried him from being a late-round draft pick to an all-star and fan favorite. After receiving initial medical attention on the field, Fry was eventually helped to his feet and carted off toward the clubhouse, with the Guardians' training staff continuing to apply pressure to control the bleeding. The image of him being wheeled away, conscious but clearly in significant pain, served as a haunting reminder of how quickly a routine baseball play can transform into a life-altering event. The game, after a brief pause for medical attention, resumed play with pinch hitter George Valera completing the at-bat. Valera drew a walk, helping spark a 3-run inning that gave Cleveland the lead. The Guardians, perhaps motivated by what had happened to their teammate, rallied to score 3 runs in the inning and went on to win the game 5-2, though the victory felt hollow in the immediate aftermath of Fry's injury. As Fry was transported to the hospital for further evaluation and treatment, the baseball world began to grapple with what they had just witnessed. Social media exploded with reactions, well-wishes, and prayers for the injured player, while commentators and analysts struggled to find words adequate to describe described the severity and shocking nature of the incident. The medical battle and outpouring of support. The immediate aftermath of David Fry's devastating injury marked the beginning of what would become a remarkable story of medical expertise, human compassion, and the baseball community's ability to come together in times of crisis. As Fry was rushed to the hospital, leaving behind a stunned stadium and millions of concerned fans watching around the world, a complex medical evaluation was about to unfold that would determine not just his immediate future, but potentially his entire baseball career. Fry was initially transported to Lutheran Medical Center for emergency evaluation before being transferred to the Cleveland Clinic main campus for advanced imaging and observation. The decision to transfer him to the Cleveland Clinic, one of the nation's premier medical institutions and a facility renowned for its expertise in treating complex facial and neurological trauma, spoke to the serious nature of his injuries and the medical team's commitment to providing him with the highest level of care available. The hours that followed were filled with uncertainty, anxiety, and an overwhelming outpouring of support from every corner of the baseball world. While Fry underwent a battery of tests and examinations, fans, teammates, opponents, and media members alike waited anxiously for news about his condition. The incident had transcended the typical boundaries of team loyalty and division rivalries. This was about a human being who had suffered a serious injury while simply trying to help his team win a crucial game. Dr. Brian Suter, in his medical analysis of the incident, provided crucial insight into the types of injuries that Fry could have sustained and the complexity of evaluating facial trauma in sports.
It was a concerning scene earlier tonight in Cleveland when David Fry took this 99-mile-an-hour fastball off the front left side of his face. In this video, we'll take a look at what exactly happened here and talk about the underlying anatomy and various traumas that could have occurred to his face.
Dr. Suter's analysis highlighted the particular vulnerability that batters face during bunting situations, explaining how the eye sits recessed in the orbital socket with surrounding bones designed to take the brunt of facial impacts, but a projectile like a baseball could potentially bypass these natural protections. The medical expert noted that while the body's design offers some protection for crucial organs like the eyes, the specific trajectory and speed of Fry's injury created a perfect storm of dangerous circumstances.
The bones that we're going to worry about here, the number one bone is going to be the maxilla. The maxilla is the upper part of the jaw that goes across from the right to the left.
The medical evaluation that Fry underwent was comprehensive and sophisticated, involving multiple imaging studies and examinations designed to assess not just the obvious facial injuries, but also to rule out potentially more serious complications such as brain trauma, damage to the orbital socket, and injury to the delicate structures surrounding the eye. When he gets to the hospital, they're certainly going to do a CT scan of the face to try and evaluate for any of that facial trauma, Dr. Suter explained, emphasizing the importance of advanced imaging in cases of high-velocity facial impact. Tarek Skubal, the Detroit Tigers pitcher whose fastball had caused the injury, was visibly devastated by what had occurred. Despite being in the middle of a crucial game for his own team's playoff hopes, Skubal's thoughts were entirely focused on the well-being of the player he had accidentally injured. The left-handed pitcher's emotional response in the immediate aftermath of the incident spoke volumes about his character and the unwritten bonds that exist between players, even those on opposing teams. Skubal, who caught a ride to the hospital with Vogt, personally apologized to Fry and checked on his well-being. His decision to visit the hospital, despite having no obligation to do so, and despite the potential emotional difficulty of such a visit, demonstrated the kind of class and humanity that represents the best aspects of professional athletics. "I was going there just to make sure he was all right. I mean, this is a game, but we're all humans. Stuff like that happens. That's real-life stuff, not baseball game stuff," Skubal would later explain, his words capturing the perspective that allowed him to see beyond the competitive aspects of the game to the human reality of what had occurred. His statement reflected a maturity and emotional intelligence that resonated with fans and fellow players alike. The visit to the hospital also highlighted the leadership and character of Cleveland manager Stephen Vogt, who along with several players visited Fry at the hospital Tuesday night. Vogt's presence at the hospital, along with his willingness to facilitate Skubal's visit, demonstrated the kind of leadership that extends far beyond tactical decisions and lineup construction. In allowing an opposing pitcher to accompany him to check on his injured player, Vogt showed that some things in baseball and in life transcend the competitive boundaries that typically define professional sports. Detroit Tigers manager A.J. Hinch also played a crucial role in the display of sportsmanship that followed the incident, texting Vogt throughout the night and expressing relief at Fry's condition. "It's very important for players to take care of players. Tarek cares about people first, Hinch noted, emphasizing the values that had guided his pitcher's response to the situation. The anxiety surrounding Fry's condition was heightened by the visible severity of the injury and the knowledge that facial trauma from high-velocity impacts can result in complications that extend far beyond the initial damage. Dr. Sauter's analysis had highlighted several potential areas of concern, including possible trauma to the eye, facial fractures that might require surgery, and the ever-present concern about concussion or brain injury.
One very important thing when it comes to evaluating for an orbital socket injury or fracture is going to be the extraocular movement, so how the eyeballs move in all different directions.
On September 24, 2025, the Guardians issued an official update that brought both relief and continued concern. The news was better than many had feared, but still sobering in its implications for Fry's immediate future and potentially his long-term career prospects. Fry had sustained multiple, minimally displaced, left-sided facial and nasal fractures, including a broken nose. The term minimally displaced provided crucial information about the nature of Fry's injuries. While he had indeed suffered multiple fractures from the impact, the fact that they were minimally displaced meant that the bone fragments had not shifted significantly from their normal positions. This was crucial news because it meant that no surgery would be required and that the fractures could heal naturally with proper monitoring and care. Perhaps most importantly, Fry was cleared of any concussion, brain injury, or other long-term neurological concerns, which had been a primary worry given the location and force of the impact. This news brought enormous relief to his family, teammates, and fans who understood that while broken bones heal, brain injuries can have lifelong consequences that extend far beyond baseball. The medical update also provided a timeline for Fry's recovery. Though the news was disappointing for a player and team with playoff aspirations, his expected full recovery timeline is 6 to 8 weeks, which would place his potential return around late November to early December 2025, well after the MLB regular season and potentially missing the entire postseason if the Guardians advanced deep into the playoffs. Fry was discharged from the Cleveland Clinic on Wednesday, September 24, 2025, and is resting comfortably at home. The fact that he was able to go home so quickly after such a serious injury spoke to both the quality of medical care he had received and his body's resilience in dealing with the trauma. However, the medical team emphasized that while he was stable enough to recover at home, he will need close monitoring, including serial assessments, follow-up exams, and scans to track healing progress. The human side of the story continued to develop as Fry's family, who were not in Cleveland at the time of the incident, traveled to be with him, providing emotional support during recovery. The importance of family support during such a traumatic and painful recovery cannot be overstated, and their presence undoubtedly provided comfort during what was certainly one of the most difficult periods of his life. Even in his injured state, Fry's character continued to shine through as he texted Skubal the next morning to thank him, a gesture that Skubal said meant a lot. Despite being the victim of a serious injury that had effectively ended his season, Fry's first instinct was to reach out and reassure the pitcher who had accidentally hurt him, demonstrating the kind of grace and compassion that had made him such a beloved figure throughout his career. Stephen Vogt's comments about the incident captured both the relief and continued concern that surrounded Fry's condition. Vogt described Fry as a tough kid in good spirits despite the pain, emphasizing relief that there were no brain injuries. Broken bones heal. We're all really happy that David's okay. The manager's words reflected both his personal concern for his player and his professional understanding that while the injury was serious, it could have been catastrophically worse. Vogt also praised the Tigers' response and called Skubal an unbelievable human, noting that some things are bigger than baseball. His comments highlighted how the incident had brought out the best in everyone involved, from the opposing pitcher who visited the hospital to the managers who put human concerns above competitive considerations. The broader baseball community's response to Fry's injury was overwhelming in its scope and sincerity. Social media reactions on X, formerly Twitter, were overwhelmingly supportive, with users praising Skubal's class act and the Tigers' response. Posts from accounts like OBS Cleveland highlighted the Tigers' sportsmanship, garnering thousands of views and likes. Official updates from MLB insiders and local reporters, such as Our Talkin' Baseball and Akami Justice, were widely shared, amassing over 300,000 views combined. The volume and nature of the social media response demonstrated how deeply the incident had resonated with fans across all team allegiances. Messages of support, prayers for recovery, and praise for the sportsmanship displayed by both teams dominated the conversation, showing that in moments of genuine human crisis, the artificial boundaries created by team loyalty dissolve in favor of basic human compassion. The impact, recovery, and broader implications. The aftermath of David Fry's devastating injury extended far beyond the immediate medical concerns and emotional responses, creating ripple effects that would influence team decisions, reignite important safety debates, and ultimately serve as a powerful reminder of both the fragility and resilience of the human spirit in professional athletics. As Fry began his recovery at home, surrounded by family and supported by an entire baseball community, the broader implications of what had occurred on that September evening began to crystallize. From a purely baseball perspective, the timing of Fry's injury could not have been more crushing for both the player and his team. The Guardians were in the midst of a fierce battle for the American League Central Division title, with every game carrying enormous playoff implications. Fry had been an integral part of Cleveland's success throughout the season, and his versatility as a player who could contribute at multiple positions while providing clutch hitting in crucial moments made his absence particularly difficult to overcome. Fry was placed on the 10-day injured list, retroactive to September 23, 2025, making him ineligible for the remainder of the regular season and playoffs. The Guardians responded by recalling outfielder Jonathan Rodriguez from AAA Columbus to fill the roster spot, but replacing a player of Fry's experience and proven ability to perform in high-pressure situations presented a significant challenge for manager Stephen Vogt and his coaching staff. Fry's absence was described as a blow to the team's offense, as he had been a versatile hitter and occasional catcher, but Cleveland's organizational depth provided some flexibility in making adjustments. The team's strong position in the AL Central race heading into the playoffs allowed for adjustments, potentially shifting players like Kyle Manzardo or Jhonkensy Noel into more prominent roles. However, the impact of losing Fry extended beyond mere statistics and positional flexibility. Throughout his career, he had established himself as a player who elevated his performance in the biggest moments, with his 2024 postseason heroics serving as prime examples of his ability to deliver when the stakes were highest. His postseason stats reflected this clutch ability: 286 AVG, 2 HR, 8 RBI, 869 OPS in 28 AB, with a 100% win rate in games with an RBI, 4 Nero. The psychological impact on his teammates was equally significant. Players who had come to rely on Fry's steady presence and timely hitting were forced to adjust not just their on-field approach, but also their mental preparation for the pressures of playoff baseball without one of their most trusted clutch performers. The image of their teammate lying bloodied on the field served as a stark reminder of the physical risks inherent in their profession, potentially affecting their own approach to certain aspects of the game.
So an update, David Fry, we didn't show you in the highlights, was hit in the face with a pitch by Tarek Skubal, who was upset. He was released from the hospital today. He has minimally displaced fractures in his face and his nose on the left side of it. He will be out 6 to 8 weeks, but will not require surgery, so that's good news.
The news updates continued to provide cautious optimism about Fry's condition, though the reality of his recovery journey was just beginning to unfold. As of September 25, 2025, there had been no further official medical updates, but reports indicated he remained in good spirits and had been communicating with teammates via text. This communication with his teammates served not only as a positive sign of his mental and emotional state, but also as a source of encouragement for players who were deeply concerned about their injured colleague. The incident sparked renewed and intense discussions about player safety in Major League Baseball, particularly regarding protective equipment for batters. The incident has reignited debates about player safety in baseball, particularly regarding protective equipment. The fact that Fry was wearing a standard batting helmet at the time of the injury highlighted the limitations of current protective gear, especially in situations like bunting where players lean forward and expose their faces to potential danger. Former MLB player Jimmy Rollins, commenting on the event, argued against mandating full face masks for batters, stating that personal comfort and vision in helmets should take precedence over forced safety changes. Rollins's perspective represented one side of a complex debate that has persisted throughout baseball's evolution: the balance between player safety and the traditional aspects of the game that players and fans hold dear. The safety debate was particularly complex because it involved not just the technical aspects of protective equipment, but also the psychological and performance-related factors that influence player acceptance of new gear. Many players resist additional protective equipment, arguing that it can interfere with their vision, comfort, or ability to perform at the highest level. Discussions on platforms like Reddit echoed this complexity, with users noting the psychological impact on pitchers and hitters, but questioning if mandatory face masks, currently optional and rarely used by position players, could prevent such injuries without hindering performance. MLB had not announced any immediate policy reviews as of September 25, 2025. 2025, but similar past incidents had led to gradual equipment improvements. The league's approach to safety improvements has historically been measured and deliberate, taking into account input from players, medical experts, equipment manufacturers, and other stakeholders before implementing changes that could affect the fundamental nature of the game. The medical aspects of Fry's recovery continued to be closely monitored by both the team's medical staff and independent specialists. He is currently managing significant pain from the fractures, a reminder that while the long-term prognosis was positive, the immediate aftermath of such severe trauma involves considerable physical discomfort and challenges. The recovery process for facial fractures of this magnitude is complex and requires careful attention to multiple factors beyond just the healing of broken bones. Patients must deal with swelling, pain management, potential changes in sensation, and the psychological impact of a traumatic injury. For a professional athlete whose livelihood depends on precise hand-eye coordination and split-second decision-making, the mental aspect of recovery can be just as challenging as the physical healing process. Fry's injury history provided some context for understanding his resilience and approach to recovery. He had previously undergone right elbow ligament surgery in November 2024, missing opening day 2025 and the first approximately 2 months of the season. The elbow surgery had involved reconstructive work using hybrid internal brace and tendon graft technique with an expected 6 to 8 month rehab timeline. His successful recovery from the elbow surgery, achieving full recovery by late May 2025 and making his season debut on May 31st versus Chicago White Sox, demonstrated both his commitment to rehabilitation and his body's ability to heal from significant surgical procedures. This previous experience with major injury and recovery would likely serve him well in navigating the challenges ahead with his facial injuries. That brings us to the end of this video. For more interesting videos like this, click on the cards on your screen.